Hello, friends. Welcome back to another Magic Monday. We are here today looking at Kethis, the hidden hand, in a deck that I call Feast. So Kethis is here because there's not a lot of black, white, green commanders. He is useful because, as you can see, legendary spells cost one less to cast, and I can reclaim some legendary stuff from the graveyard if needed. But overall, he's just kind of here because it's a black, white, green deck. You could just as easily put in Golas or the tree, the 5-color tree, whatever. But Kethis is what I went with. As you can see here, we have an average mana cost of 2.5, which is pretty low. Predominantly green, slightly less white, and almost no black, but just enough that we want it. We have 31 creatures, 11 spells, 11 artifacts, 8 enchantments, and 39 lands. A little bit light on the lands because it's an average mana cost of 2.5. So, the idea of this deck is to exploit token generation, specifically food tokens. So as we go through this, there's a couple of different things here. There's a little bit of a life gain theme to it, but it's not really supposed to be a life gain deck. It just has some elements of it. So like Authority of the Consuls, creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and I gain a life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control. It's mostly for the control, the tapping of the creatures as they come into play, but, the one life, whatever. Cleric class, also to gain more life and potentially pump up creatures with that level 2 bump on it. Light of Hope for some life gain if needed, but it's mostly enchantment removal or like blocking and adding that 1/1 counter. Norn's Disassembly. Here's where we start getting interesting. We sacrifice our food tokens to seek other historic cards. Or if like our opponent is about to exile all permanents on the board, for example, you would sacrifice stuff here so that they don't get exiled, seek historic cards, and then you can use Kethis to bring historic permanent creatures back specifically. Cauldron Familiar. Now we get into the little bit of the combo aspect of this game. So can't block. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. Sacrifice a food. Return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So here we've got a reusable, gain 1, lose 1 kind of pinger here for 1 black mana. Shalob's Ambush. Target creature gets +1/+2 and creates a food token and gains Death Touch. I didn't say that part. So we're gaining a food token, and we can potentially use this to eliminate an aggressive creature on the other side. Delighted Halfling. It's a halfling, which was the majority theme, I guess, if I have to put it that way, just to add some mana. And it's also a halfling, and that was sort of the theme. Many Partings lets us search for a basic land, put it in our hand, and create a food token. Pippin's Bravery lets us sacrifice a food. So for 1 green and a sacrificed food, we get +4/4 on a creature. Ravenous Squirrel. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a counter on it, and we can sacrifice an artifact or creature to gain a life and draw a card. So this is handy in the event that we need some card draw. We could sacrifice foods. This guy gets bigger, and we draw cards. Witch's Oven. We can sacrifice stuff such as, I don't know, for example, this Cauldron Familiar. So sacrifice a creature, create a food token, then sacrifice a food to bring this back to the battlefield. So we can just kind of loop on that for a while if we feel like it. Here we do have a Johnny's Pridemate. Because there is a lot of life gain, I wanted something that could be a bit beefier. And it's such a staple. I don't like it, but it's a staple, so I put it in. Hobbit Sting deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of creatures you control plus the number of foods you control. Usually that foods is going to be the bigger number. Shire Shrift. Sacrifice a token, in this case food, to exile target creature until this guy leaves the battlefield. Voice of the Blessed, similar to the Ajani's Pridemate, gets bigger as you gain life. Giant Skewer to potentially make more food, but also this is more thematic than useful. Let's scroll down here. Insatiable appetite. You may sacrifice food. If you do, creature gets +5/5 until end of turn. And then we get into some of the meat and potatoes here. Meriadoc. Whenever one or more of your halflings you control attack a player, create a food token. Also, Samwise. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token. Sacrifice 3 foods. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. Samwise, it turns out, works really well with Rosie Cotton of South Lane. When she enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a token, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. Now, that can be useful just to make a creature bigger. It's a good combo by itself. But when you add Scurry Oak, whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Of course, we have Chatterfang, which also will make some squirrel tokens. And we've got Peregrine Took. Whenever one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food are created instead. Sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. Frodo does not have anything to do with food. I put him in here because it's Frodo and Sam. Like, how could you not, right? But we also have Mushroom Watchdogs, where we could sacrifice the food to put a 1/1 counter on this. We put in Sting because it's a Lord of the Rings deck. Some things, like I said, are more thematic. We got a little bit of control here with Bound by Moon Silver. We got another gets bigger as you gain life in the Unicorn. We have when East Farthing Farmer, that's hard to say, enters the battlefield, create a food token. When you do, target creature gets 1/1 until end of turn for each food that you control. Can be really helpful if you have Bilbo's Ring. As long as it's your turn, equipped creature can't be blocked and has hexproof. So there's lots of like little combos in here. When it enters or leaves, create a food token. Just a basic creature to make some food tokens. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, make this bigger. Tempting Witch. When it enters the battlefield, create a food. Sacrifice a food. Target player loses 3 life. Can be very useful. I did put in Heliod. I know I complain about Heliod all the time, but it's one of the 99, so I feel less bad about it. Fortifying Provisions. Creatures you control get a little bit more toughness and create a food. So we've got a lot of food stuff. Giant Opportunity. Sacrifice 2 foods to make a 7/7 giant or make 3 food tokens. Peregrine Took, I already talked about. Stew the Conies. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control, but create a food token, because that's the theme. Tireless Provisioner, more food tokens, or treasure tokens if needed. Savvy Hunter, whenever it attacks or blocks, make a food, sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. Anduril, Flame of the West. This is just to make some more tokens. It's nice that it gets the 3/1, whatever. I'll use it if I have it and it makes sense. But it's more theme than substance. It's more style than substance. Like Bill the Pony. Create 2 food tokens, sacrifice a food until end of turn. Target creature you control assigns combat damage to its equal to its toughness rather than power. He's a blocker that makes food, whatever. Late to Dinner, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, make a food. And then we've got Mondrak. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, create twice that many instead, and you can give him an indestructible counter. Bake into a pie, destroy a creature, create a food. Eleanor Gardner. When she enters the battlefield, create a food. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacrificed a food, you may search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Another reason why we're a little bit lighter on land right here. Wicked Wolf. It fights a creature, sacrifice a food, get a 1/1 counter on it, and it gains it indestructible until end of turn. Butterbur, the Bree Innkeeper. If you don't control a food, make a food. Pretty basic. The One Ring, which I think at this point pretty much everybody knows what it does, but it's indestructible. When you cast it the first time, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. You lose 1 life for each burden counter on it, and tap to put a burden counter on it, and then draw a card for each burden counter on the one ring. In case we need some card draw, it's there. And again, style over substance. Well of Lost Dreams, whatever you gain life, you could pay X and draw X cards. Pretty useful in a deck with a lot of life gain. And Sarith Ungol Patrol, sacrifice another creature, draw a card, then create a food. This is here if a creature I have is about to die, or if I need a way to get a Cauldron Familiar into the graveyard, for example. So I can just ping that Cauldron Familiar back and forth a couple times each turn and do some damage. So we got some plains. Got a Phyrexian Tower. If we need some land, we could sacrifice something. We got this forest that destroys stuff. We got a gingerbread cabin that makes a food. We have the Shire, which can make some more food. We got some nice dual-colored lands here, like these guys, and the Shine Shadow Snarl, and a bunch of lands. And Command Tower, blah, blah, blah. So that's the main theme, is make a lot of tokens and then do stuff with them. Make a lot of food tokens, most specifically. So we're going to check this out. We're going to put some music on the games. I hope it goes well, and I hope you enjoy this video. I'm going to say my outro now before I play the games, which is, of course, please be kind to yourselves and each other. And again, thank you so much for watching.